Okay, good morning, everybody. How are we doing today? We have been talking about investment for a few days now, and I wanted to progress that conversation. In the last few videos, we've talked about the importance of setting a very clear end goal, which will then, of course, dovetail into the clarity around the actions and the systems and structures to put in place to make that happen. Now, we've buttressed over and over again that investing is a long-term game, which means there has to be a big picture, there has to be something that we're working at that is far out. Now, most of the time, the term long term can have different meanings to different people. So some, it can be 5 years, to some it's 10, to some it's 20, to some it's 30. But here's the thing, I said that your most important resource in investment is time, not money. The more time you have, the more the higher your chances of success, which therefore means that you have to give yourself enough time to succeed. A lot of times, we are in a hurry, especially in this our time where everybody is, in a hurry to appear somehow. You want to appear rich, you want to oppress your neighbors, you want them to see that you have made it. And we all know that that's not the case, so it's important to be very clear that time is what is most important, which means that the younger you are, the lucky you are that you can start early, the luckier you are that you can start early. And the older you are, the more work you need to put in so that you can set yourself up and, of course, the next generation for advancement. And that is why, we've talked about second passports, we talked about your net worth, we've talked about your savings, we talked about, quite a number of things. And today I wanted to talk about the importance of having a plan, your investing plan. So, for example, we have seen that you cannot invest without having an investment portfolio. And the investment portfolio can only be created when you have a stash or a savings, as we all know it. Now, the savings is the base that you're going to begin to build with, right? Because if you don't have anything to start with, what are you going to use to make your investment? Now, it's not by the size of what you have available, it's by first and foremost the availability and also the consistency with which you can continue the process. So, if for example, I say, okay, in 20 years, I want to be worth 100 million naira, for example, now I can take a math, I can take 100 million naira divided by 20 years to see how much I need to produce every year. Now, I may not be in the place to produce that amount immediately. So, with 100 million in 20 years, that's about 5 million a year. Now, I may not be in the position currently to produce 5 million a year, but my job now is to direct myself in that direction. So, is to, yes, put things in place that takes me in that path, right? So some of these things can be acquiring a new skill, a new high value skill that puts me in a better place. So you see how all these things are connected, right? If you don't have savings, you will not have the resources to take certain steps. So for example, some people have remained poor because they don't have the resources to take certain steps that will better their lot or give them a better chance, right? So it means that your savings will give you that base. So, for example, there's a skill that you need to get. Now, I think data science, AI, tech in general is real hot cake. I think counseling too is one big area that is coming up because we have a lot of people with depression and a lot of various mental health issues. So different areas that can potentially become high value areas, right? And then you say, okay, I'm going to go and study this. And you go, you put in the effort, you put in the time, you put in the resources. And in time, you put yourself in a place where you can earn 5 million, 10 million, 20 million a year. And that's how it works. You can go and check everybody who is flying high in their field. They've put in the hours, they've put in the time, they've put in the work, and in time they can produce certain outcomes. And so knowing the outcome ahead of time will help you know what direction to go. Remember that if you don't have a destination, every road becomes an option, right? But once your destination is defined, you then have, like, for example, somebody who says, I want to be an athletic champion. Now, you already know by that decision that there's certain things you can no longer do, right? So, for example, there's some kind of food you can no longer eat, there's some kind of habits you can no longer have. You can't be an athlete and be consuming alcohol like water, So, certain decisions, certain potential outcomes will determine certain things that you are not going to need to do anymore, right? So, and that is why it is important for you to decide how you want to go. So, for example, when I started, my first aim obviously was to have enough to take care of my family. So that was the beginning. I wanted to have some savings so that I could take new courses, because at then I was still single. So I wanted to take courses that will, give me chance to get better, right? So when I started working and I was earning, 38,500 at the time, I was putting money aside. And when it had gotten to a certain amount, I went and did certification courses. Now, some of those certification courses were forced upon me, so I wouldn't take credit for that. But I went and did that, and then it increased my chances of increasing my income. In fact, at the time I was done with those certification courses, my income had tripled. Now, imagine if I had stayed there without doing anything. It means that I would still most likely be there or struggling around that area. But because I took the initiative to start doing something, even though I had to make a lot of sacrifices to make that happen. But because I took the step, certain things started happening, and that is how it works. You have to put the seed in the ground before you can expect harvest. And remember, seed time, harvest, there's seed, there's time, and there's harvest, which means time must pass. And while you're waiting, there are things you have to do. You have to weed, you have to do certain things that make sure that you don't, leave the seed in the ground to rot, So, and then you don't leave it for birds to come and steal it away, So many things that come together to you to show that you need to very clearly understand what you want out of life, and that will determine the next step of actions to take. So after I tripled my income, I started looking for another way to. I wanted to have multiple streams of income because my salary was my only source of income at the time. So I started looking for things I could do alongside my job that would also increase my income, and that was how I stumbled on crypto, and I did crypto for I think about 2 years before I finally resigned from my job and, started doing crypto full time. But, the fact that I was always searching for something to increase my net worth, obviously, and also my savings potential, because I believe if I earn more, I'll be able to put more aside, and if I put more aside, I'll be able to have more options. And that's the idea. You must think about it as a whole chain. Every single decision you're making, every action you're taking must add up to where you're going. So, for example, I've always thought about myself as a business person. I love to build businesses. I love to help people build businesses. I like to think about business processes and how to optimize them. And that to a large extent means that I wasn't going to, stay long in working for others, because eventually I'll have to come and do my own thing, and that's why it's important to have a clear picture of where you're going, so that you can then begin to break down the steps and then faithfully and consistently work towards it. So we'll continue this conversation in the next video. Have a nice day.